This conference will now be recorded.
This is Cheryl Vecchio, and today's class is a review of how to complete all of the contract documents in order to submit an offer to purchase property. So all the buyer's rep documents. And we're starting out today. We want to sign into dotloop. We want to pick a property to sell if we have not done so. And then we're going to get started because I have a lot to cover. So let's talk about what really happens in real life. So if I am showing properties to my client in real life, I have probably, when I show properties, and let's say I'm showing properties that are pretty much alike. I mean, my client wants a 4-bedroom house that's 2-story and they want a pool. Okay, let's pretend that. So if that's the case, then when I go to show them those properties, let's say I have 4 houses in Jacob's Reserve, they're all around the same price, around the same area, I'm probably going to run a CMA, a quick CMA before I go, because I want to make sure I know, unless I'm showing in that neighborhood over and over again, I really know it. I want to make absolutely sure I have a CMA with me so I can talk value to my client. Because what happens to us many, many times, you're going to be standing in a kitchen and the client's going to look at you and say, what do you think I'd offer for this house? So you want to have a, especially when you're new and if you don't really just have a clear understanding of that neighborhood, you want to run your CMA before you go there. Now, if you haven't done that, and whenever a client says to me, if they catch me off guard and they say, what do you think I'd offer for this house? I say, you know what? I know the values in this neighborhood ranging from here to here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go home and I'm going to run a market analysis for you, and then we can talk about what to offer. And I do that because I really want to make sure that I understand my market. And also, from an Abbey perspective, we are required to have a CMA in our hand that we discussed with our client prior to writing that contract. So even if the client said, hey, I want to offer $500,000, and whatever that conversation is, you still need to have your CMA. You still need to work with your client and chat with them about values and what to offer. So in my let's pretend world, I have run my quick CMA. And then what I'm going to do, my client's going to say to me, okay, I want to offer $300,000 for this house. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, I save a copy to a file before I ever start the tax record for this house and the MLS. The couple reasons I say the MLS. First of all, it's got quite a bit of information I'm going to need. Secondly, it's got, in the agent remarks, it's got the information, any information from the listing agent. And then the last thing that I want to save and have record of is the buyer's agent percentage. Oh my goodness, that's 2%. I picked an example with 2%. Never do that. But I want to look at what the buyer's agent compensation is. And you guys, we assume that it's 3% because we work with that number so often. But remember, our commissions are not set. And so in this example, I selected this example for many other reasons, but the example has a buyer's agent compensation of 2%. And although we put that percentage of our compensation on our contracts, the document that's the legal document that says what we're going to earn is in this on this MLS document. So save that, because that is the percentage that you're going to earn at the time you made the offer. So I just print this to a file. I just print to PDF and save it. And then the other thing I do is I need the tax information, the tax records, because I need a couple things off the tax record. I'm going to make the offer to the person that says owner's name, whatever that is. I'm going to do that. Except every once in a while, you'll have someone, a listing agent, there might be something going on with, you know, an executor of a will or a divorce that makes your offer to be to someone other than this person on the tax records. And sometimes the agent will tell you and the agent knows, okay? So be careful about that. Those are a few things to be careful of when you're going to make an offer. So I sit down, I run home after I do my happy dance and tell my family that I'm going to write an offer. I'm real excited. Use my little calculator, see how much money I'm going to get to take to the shoe store, all that good stuff. Then I sit down, I pull the MLS, I pull the tax records, and I have all that ready, okay? So that I can go now to dotloop and start the process of pulling my documents. So I'm going to go to dotloop now, and I'm going to create a loop. And remember, loop equals transaction. So I'm going to create a loop, and I'm going to look at my property address, and I'm going to do 143 Winter Court Circle there, and it comes up in dotloop MLS, and then I'm going to click on it. And now remember, you guys, just a little review when we talked in dotloop class, and we said when you're pulling properties in dotloop and you've got the choice between a dotloop MLS address or a Google Maps, pick the dotloop one. It'll help you pull information in. And then I'm going to select my template, and I'm going to be a buyer's rep. So I'm going to select buyer's rep. Uh-oh. And I'm not going to upload a photo, but so I'm going to say done. And just as a review, remember that I'm going to view my loop. And when I view my loop, I'm going to go to view details before I do anything. And I'm going to go down, and under my name, I'm going to change my role to buying agent. And then I'm going to add my buyer. And I think I have Fred Flintstone in here. Let's see. I sell a lot to Fred. No, I don't have him in here. I'll add his email. No. And remember, I have an email that I can use. Just a second. As y'all can tell, I use this email a lot. Oh, I can't type. There we go. And I'm going to give Fred a role, and Fred's role is buyer. And now let's just, and you know, I want to put Fred's address in there because we don't know if Fred's going to live in this house or it's going to be investment property. That is no consequence. I want to make sure that I have Fred's address in here. So I'm going to put him at 123 Rock Bed Lane. And he lives in Bedrock, Texas. His address is, there we go, that's good enough. And then so I added Fred, I've got Fred in there. And then I'm going to go down and notice that dotloop, because the listing agent Tracy is part of, has a dotloop account, it pulls all her information in also. So I'm going to go down, and it's my property address is pulled in here. The sales commission rate, it says 3, I get 2. My words of wisdom from Cheryl is that be very careful when you're putting together properties to show. If you're going to accept a lower rate than you normally would, you want to know that up front. So I always, nowadays, you see a lot of 2 and 2.5 in commission rates. So what I do is when I'm putting together properties to show, I look at that when I'm putting together the property to show, so I'm not surprised when they go, I love this one, and it's like 1%. So a lot of time iBuyers will put properties in at a lower commission rate. So I'm going to come down here. I don't put everything in here because it follows and things could change. So I go down to things that are not going to change, like geographic description. And remember where I got my geographic description? I went to, oops, I went to my tax information, and I just copy legal description right there. And I add legal description, and it's block 2, lot 2. Be sure you get that part back, that part correctly. And lot 2, okay. And then that's pretty much all I need under detail. So I'm going to hit save. And we're a little slow here in the room. There we go. And then I'm going to go back up, and I'm going to go back to my loop. I've put my details together. Now I'm going back to my loop. And just to make sure I got, my rule done correctly, I'm going to check the IABS, and yes, I'm in there. Life is good. Now, one other thing that I forgot to tell you when we're talking about what to pull from the MLS, very important, my apologies, but when I am working in the MLS before I get started, I go to attachments. And under attachments, I should find, if this is a good agent, I should find all of the things that I will need in order to complete a good offer. So the first thing I'm seeing here is I have a seller's exclusion list. They've given me the MUD. They've got a disclosure of relationship they want me to sign. They have a survey, yay, they have a survey, and they have the seller's disclosure notice. So for my client, I'm going to download everything I need my client to sign, and I'm going to save it. So we're just going to do that real fast. I'm going to download them. And I think I have a file called class. Let's see, where did I put it? There we go, class samples. I'm going to open, and I'm going to just copy these. I'm going to need these, so I'm going to copy them real fast. Get them water district, and I'm going to need, let's just say I'm going to need the seller's disclosure. I'm trying, in the interest of time in class, I'm not downloading everything. In my real world, I would download all of this, including the survey, because remember, I'm going to need my survey to get paid. So I might as well do it all now, but in the interest of time in class, I'm not going to do all that, okay? So, but in the real world, I would have saved all of these disclosures to I make a little file for my clients, and I save all those disclosures. And probably in the real world, I would have already had my clients sign the IABS and a buyer's rep agreement. So I know I'm going to want this too for class purposes. So what would my mom say? Don't do as I do as I say do. And just for, in the interest of time, we're not going to download everything, but in the real world, we would download it. So I'm going back to Dotloop because I have everything I need. I don't want to share my documents yet. Remember, I don't want to share my documents individually because my client's going to get 47 emails and I don't want that to happen. We're going to pretend that I just met this client. Not only and then I'm getting to make an offer, but this is our first meeting. We looked at one house and they said, I want to buy this house. It's like a miracle. And I can tell you from personal experience that does happen. I had it happen to me once. I was like, I was drinking a sip of water and this man turned to me and goes, I'll take it. I almost spit water on him. And then the other thing that I have to tell you, in my personal life, when I moved to the Woodlands, I looked at 3 houses, picked one. And that agent had never met me in her life. She probably went home and bought a lottery ticket. I didn't realize how rare that was at the time because I wasn't an agent. But anyway, so this person, I'm going to need to send them an IVS. I'm going to need to send them a residential buyer's rep agreement. And here at Abby, we require a residential buyer's rep agreement. And notice that in a residential buyer's rep agreement, everything is pre-filled out if I have all of my client's information and all of my Abby information incorrectly. If your Abby information isn't coming up, it's because something's going on in your profile. So when I fill this out, the first thing I'm going to do after I've got all the, name, rank, and serial number here is I'm going to go down to number 3, and 3C, I'm going to identify the market area. And if I don't know what's going on with people, I will put the greater Houston area. Okay, but these people, I know that they were interested in properties in the, let's say, the Woodlands Conroe area. Another reason to put the greater Houston area is because if this person changes gears on you, and recently had a client, they were picking between Katy and the Woodlands, and they were doing so based on school information. So that's a big stretch, and I don't want to lose them because they went to Katy. So when you put the greater Houston area, it kind of covers you too. So, and I want the terms of the agreement to start today. And I usually pick 6 months from now. So when that would be, let's just for fun, let's just say June. And I know that sounds crazy, but just someone that hasn't had issues come up, because there are many issues as there are transactions and different types of scenarios. So that covers you. Let's say that you start working with the client and they might have a credit issue they didn't know they had, and they need to fix it. They need a few months to fix it. So if you're covered for 6 months, then you're covered. They can go fix their credit issue and not find out that their cousin just became an agent and they dump you, okay? So we don't want that to happen. So, and remember that when I'm filling out forms and it says for me to sign, I go ahead and sign it. And I'm moving forward here, and I'm going to go down. The next place to fill something out is intermediary. I'm really sure that I explain the intermediary status to whoever. Hang on, everybody. I'm taking a break. My hubby just arrived with my electricity. You can take off your mask. You want to say hi to my class online? Under there. You don't? He doesn't want to say hi to you. Thank you. Thanks. So the next place I'm going to go down to is intermediary. And under intermediary, I always check intermediary status, and I make absolutely sure I explain intermediary status to people, because intermediary status not only has to do with if you do both sides of a deal, but it has to do if you and I are in a, you know, I have a listing and your buyer wants to buy my listing. I mean, there's nothing that makes me happier than an Abby agent to be on the other side of a deal. So we want them to understand intermediary status and how it works. The next thing that I'm going to go down, and be sure to sign every page. Nothing's more fun is to turn all your paperwork in to get paid and you forgot a page. That's fun. So I go down, and in this case, this is a good example because that contract says 2%, remember? But I want to make sure this client understands that I can get up to 3%, and I fill that out. Okay, is 3%. I want to change that. And I always, always, always make sure that I'm covered on a lease also, because you never know when someone's going to have to flip to a lease for whatever reason. It's happened to me. Someone is moving here, they're relocating, they can't find what they want, they give up and go, I'm just not buying anything, I'm going to lease. So I want to be covered and recover money, some money. It's really sad though, instead of my what, $10,000, now I'm getting $1,500. But it's still, you know, something, so fill it out. And then I'm going to go down to F, and that's an NA, I'm sorry. And then I'm going to sign. Protection period, we pre-fill this out for you for 90 days. That's a fair protection period. That means that if for some reason I showed you a house, we, you know, had that on our radar, we were looking at it, we were talking about price, and then, you know, our agreement ends and you want to buy it, I'm protected, that I'm still your agent. That's what that means. Someone can't take you away from me with those properties that we discussed. Counties filled out, Harrison, Montgomery County. If you're in Walker County or Fort Bend County, you can change that easily. I make it inclusive to the counties around me. So that's why I do Montgomery County, Harris County. Or if you're in Walker County, you might do Walker County, San Jacinto County, or in Montgomery County. So whatever makes sense in your life and with your client, okay? Addendas that we need to add to this is information about broker services. And I also, also give my clients the general information and notice to buyers and sellers. Now, you guys be very careful here, because from a compliance perspective, whatever you put in number 16 has to show up in your paperwork when you submit, okay? So don't be checking boxes and being cool with your client and then not want to submit that paperwork correctly and sign. Because it says it in here, if you said that I'm going to provide them the addenda and information on in special flood hazard areas, then it has to be in your paperwork when you complete your paperwork. And here we are again in special provisions. I personally have not ever used special provisions. When you use special provisions, it has to be a specific legal actionable statement. And so I think in most cases we have a form for that. And so I don't use special provisions very often. If someone has an example of when they would, please let me know. And you guys online, I didn't give you, most of you have been online with me, but I didn't give you my speech about it. If you have a question, please just interrupt me. I try to check chat every once in a while, but it's not my strongest skill. So just interrupt me, take yourself off mute, and ask questions if you like. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm finished with this. I'm going to go ahead and sign it before I present it to my buyer. And I'm done. I'm going to save it, and then I'm going to go to the next buyer's form. Okay, 1 to 4. Let's go to the 1 to 4 contract. Let's get to the meat and potatoes of my contract. So I'm going to do, again, I can add here. I sometimes choose not to do that because, again, When I do that, it stays with the transaction, okay? Okay, so my first thing I'm gonna do, and the reason I write in the parties and not make them a party, okay, I write in the seller on the contract. Personally, I don't make the seller a party in my dotwood transaction. And the reason is because if you make them a party, they're gonna show up as a signature line here, okay? And you don't want that because we don't ever send anything directly to a seller. We send it to their agent. So the only time I think I would make the buyer and the seller part of this is if I was representing both, and then I'd probably still do 2 transactions. So I just don't mix and mingle them. I'm representing the buyer, that's the only person that goes in here. And when I need their name, I type in their name, okay? So where I find their name is I go back to that tax statement. Where did I put it? It snuck off. Here we go. I go back to my tax statement, and it's Nadja Hunter is the seller's name. So that's who I'm just exactly as I see it. I'm not going to leave anything out. If she had a third name, I put that in. If she had an initial, I put that in. If she's had junior, I put that in. Whatever it says there, I just copy it. That's it. That's the seller. And then I remember, if I've done this correctly, I've pre-populated, but you still need to go back and read and make sure what you think populated, because in this case, I don't have a legal description. So I'm going to go back. Where did I put it? There we go. I'm going to go back to my tax statement and pull my legal description. Oops. Let's put that in here. So even and then I'm going to come down to exclusions, and we talked a little bit about this yesterday when we were talking about listings. Here I just put C list. Now, if they didn't give me a list and the listing agent already told me, hey, that water softener is excluded. And remember, I'm making an offer. I want them to love my offer and pick me. So this is kind of a pick me thing. And one good way to pick me is make this easy on the listing agent. Be the listing agent's friend. Yes, you represent yourself, but especially if there are agents that have been around a long time, and there used to be a thought process in some circles, I guess, where in order to protect your client, you need to be adversarial. I don't believe that at all. I believe that in multiple offer situations, many times I can talk the listing agent into picking me because I appear to be easy to work with. Don't you want to work with somebody that's easy to work with? So appear to be easy to work with. And so if they said, hey, we don't have an exclusion list, but the water softener is excluded, then I would put it in here. In this case, remember, we had a list, so I'm going to say C list. So now we get down to the nitty gritty of what I'm offering. In this situation, let's look at how this is broken out. There's a cash portion of the sale. If it was an all cash deal, I would be putting my whole offer amount in that deal. I would be putting, so let's say I'm offering $300,000. Then I would be putting $300,000 in that box, and I would deselect third-party financing. Okay, that's what I would do. In this case, we are doing third-party financing, and I am I'm going to make this really easy. I'm putting 10%, we're putting 10% down, and we're financing the rest. So let's look at what that would be. That would be, so I put the cash portion at $30,000. Okay, and then that means that I am financing 270,000, get my math right. And by the way, in the real world, when I'm not teaching a class and trying to get you guys through this, I would put this in a calculator. Even if I know it, I put it in a calculator. I put it in a calculator when I'm calculating my cash portion, and then I put it in a calculator when I'm adding it all together, okay? So do yourself a favor and get your math right. So I'm offering them 300,000. And by the way, another place that I would get this information is if I have a client and my client is getting third-party financing, I'm going to have a pre-approval letter. Do not make the mistake of sending the seller their total pre-approved amount. This is why you want a partner lender, because you want to go back to the lender and say, let's say that they were pre-approved for 350,000. I don't want to send the seller a pre-approval letter for 350,000. I want to send the seller a pre-approval letter for exactly what I'm offering. This becomes very important if you're offering less than your client, you're offering less than the seller is listing for. So if this house is on the market, it's on the market for 302. But let's say it's on the market for 320. I don't want them to see I can pre-approve for that. I want them to see only what I want them to see. So I ask my lender to shoot me another pre-approval letter for what I'm offering. And if we negotiate another price, I go get another pre-approval letter and get that. So I need a lender partner that I can go back and forth with. So someone asked me yesterday, and I don't know if they're on the line, but they asked me yesterday, where do I put if the seller or the buyer or my client is a relationship to the agent? So let's say I saw that this seller was the sister of the agent. That's where I would put it here. And really, you need to disclose that when I disclose it whenever it's somebody that's in my family. That's my cousin, that's my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law and brother-in-law are investors. They buy rental properties and I do work with them. And so I don't get any additional upside for working with them. In fact, I give them a break, but I put it in here. So I disclose if I ever have a family member or the other side has a family member. So remember, I'm making it easy for them just to sign and go with this. Yes, agent is owner. Needs to go in there, definitely. Agent is owner. Okay, so I'm going to, and also what I do, and sometimes it is illegal to put title information anywhere in the listing. I'm sorry, I totally forgot my words. In the listing. So I need to ask this listing agent, hey, what's your preferred title company? So I don't have to rewrite this, okay? So I asked them what their preferred title company is. 1% is going to be $3,000 in earnest money. And let's just say somebody I know here. And the earnest money is going to go to title, I'll go, as escrow agent at, and then I put the address. I forgot his address offhand, but 122 Happy Lane. Woodlands. I put the address so they know where to take it. And if I have it offhand, I'll put their phone number in there too, because I want to make it easy. I'm making it easy on everybody where we're going to do this. And then be careful, because I see agents not reading this. If for some reason, I've only seen this happen once, I don't know why they did it in that situation, but they did it. They're going to, if someone, let's say your buyer really wants this property and there's multiple properties, multiple offers, and maybe your client says, I'll give them more than 3,000 earnest money. I can give them 10,000 earnest money. I don't care. And so in that case, you could say, okay, we'll deliver another $7,000 to the escrow agent within 10 days. I would never make it more than 10 days, less than 10 days or less than your option period. But you could add that. I've never seen a situation where you need to, but in case you need to, you can add additional earnest money. I would give yourself time to turn that earnest money in. So then we want to go down to the title policy. As you know, seller normally pays title. I have seen buyers offer to pay title in the event of it's an investor buying purchase, or it's a multiple offer purchase. If you want your client to be picked, one of the ways, it only costs them a couple thousand, is to pay the title insurance. So that does happen. You can change it if you need to. And it's going to be issued. Remember, my title company, Chicago Title. So I'm going to put Chicago Title here. And then I'm going to keep going down. And I need to, now we need to talk about the survey. So we talked about the title commitment. And then we're going to talk about, oh, by the way, what this says up here will not be amended or deleted from the title policy. They're just saying that if you go back up here and read through this is just saying that if there's any mistakes or any covenants or any exceptions or any additional shortages in a survey, then the title will not be amended, is basically what it's saying, which takes time and money. So let's go down to the survey. So the survey, there's 3 ways this can go. In my case, my seller had a survey. I sometimes forget what class I'm in. My seller had a survey. So in that case, I already see the survey. In that case, I'm going to select number 1, and I usually like say within 3 days because I'm staring at a survey. Okay. In that case, if for some reason they can't come up with a survey or their survey is not accepted, then we're saying the seller will pay for the survey. So that's number 1. Sometimes your seller will say, we don't have a survey and we expect the buyer to pay to buy a survey. In that case, I would pick number 2. And I usually give, this is an important thing to remember. Think about dates. And this is not the contract class, but we really need to think about this and I want you to go to Michael Hughes' contract classes, because he breaks this down so much that it takes him several classes to get through a 1 to 4. So you will learn something. I learn something every time I go. But think in time, okay? Your job is to protect your client's financial interest. You don't want them to have to buy a survey until they've gotten through their option period. Because you don't want this to say within 7 days, their option period's 10 days, we have a problem with the inspection, and now we got to pay for a survey and a inspection that we're not going to use because we have to bust out of this, okay? So be careful not to put your client in financial jeopardy by not lining these dates out. So if your client has to purchase a survey, I usually make that, like if my option period is going to be 10 days, I'll make the survey to be purchased in 15, okay? Because we can set, or within 15. So because we can, that way, we're not purchasing surveys before we even get through our option negotiations. So be very careful when you think about dates for your client. Don't put them in jeopardy of losing money unnecessarily. That's what you want to do. You want to line out these dates in your head. Another way is if we've negotiated and we say, hey, there's no survey and we expect the seller to buy one, and then we can check number 3 and tell them how long they have to buy it. And by the way, these are dates that you're going to make sure that you have noted on your calendar and make sure these things happen within the time period that they have happened. Also, if you read through number 1, it also states that they will have a T47. Now, here's another hint. I don't ask for the T47. It's up to title to ask for the T47. And by the way, they're signing on that they're going to give me a survey and a T47 within 3 days. Remember yesterday when I said, if you're listing a house, you get your seller to fill out that T47 before you even get a contract early on. And this is why, because they have 3 days to get this done. And if they don't provide me with a T47, it's a way my client can get out of the contract. So I just keep my little mouth shut about the T47, let title take care of that, okay? Because it is a way later that if it's not done, it's a way for my client to get out of the contract. Not that I am telling you guys you ought to try to get your clients out of contracts. I'm just telling you that if you have an issue, if you have a problem, these are the kinds of things you can rely on to help you along the way. Okay, so objections. Most people don't read this, but this talks about what your client is going to use the house for, okay? And remember, this is a 1 to 4 family residential contract. So what does it imply that the client is going to use the house for? Residential use. So we don't have to put, you'll see it a lot, people will put it residential use in there. You don't have to put anything in there because unless they're going to have a daycare or unless they need to have their mechanic shop in the back, or unless they want to put a giant boathouse or anything like that, then you can leave that blank. And then I usually put, objections within 10 days. And that means that they can go and look at all the covenants and the restrictions of the property that they're buying. And if they needed it to they needed to use it for the daycare, and the covenants say no, they can get out of the contract. Basically, that's what all that means. And by the way, do yourself a favor and just spend some time reading this contract. It's amazing how people don't read this contract. So now we're going to go down all the way down to number 7. In my case, remember I told you yesterday, if you're the listing agent, you put those seller's disclosures on the listing. So when someone wants to buy that property, they see the seller's disclosures, they see the survey, they see the exclusions, they see everything. This is why, because if I see that seller's disclosures on the listing, I'm going to check number 1 under B. So the buyer has received the notice. If they have not received the notice, which I'm going to be honest with you, I have never checked this because I wouldn't make an offer on a house I haven't seen the notice. I mean, we're going to see the notice, but just in case, maybe you see there's 47 buyers and you want to be one, or something's going on, it just went on the market, they don't have them. Then I'd choose number 2, and I would give them no more than 3 days to produce those disclosures. So in my case, they have received the notice. There are very few reasons why the seller is not required to furnish the notice, but if that's the case, then number 3 would apply. Okay, almost always, we end up saying the buyer accepts the property as is. Now, remember, we haven't got to the option period part. So what this means is after the option period negotiations and everything is done that is supposed to be done, the buyer accepts the property as is. Because remember, the option period is an exception period, okay? If we already know for some reason that the seller has said, okay, I'm good, but okay, I'll replace the roof. I know there's a big tree falling on the roof and I'll replace the roof. Then I would put that in here under number 2. All right, and then the next thing we're going to fill out is number It's on page 5, and it's was that 7? It's H, and it's about residential service contracts. I almost always ask for a residential service contract. I feel pretty strongly about this, and and you want to make sure that you ask for enough to cover the house. So be careful in terms of, let's say you have a 4,000 square foot house and it has a pool. That's about $750 to get the middle of the road, 750-ish, maybe 800, middle of the road coverage plus pool. So be careful about how much you ask for. 575 covers the average size house under 3,000 square feet and a pool. So that's why it's pre-populated. But if you need to change that, sure to change it. And what this means is that you're asking the seller to purchase a residential service contract of your buyer's choice, valuing up to $575. So if they chose something $600, then they would owe $25 at closing. Your buyer would. Okay, and then it says broker fees are paid. That they're in a separate written agreement. Now let's talk about our closing dates. These days, you guys, closings are taking a long time. We used to do standard 30 days for everything. It was the standard in the whole industry, 30 days, 30 days, 30 days. Today, I would put 45 days on here, unless you have a cash buyer. But especially if you're talking FHA loan, VA loan, appraisers are running late. You can always close early, but I would put 45 days on here. That's my truth today. You know, sometimes my truth today is my lie tomorrow. But so we're going to look at our little calendar, and we're going to go, what's today? Today's the 18th. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. I'm just going to go ahead and, for class purposes, we're going to go December 16th. Possession upon closing and funding, or according to a temporary residential lease. Let's say that we already know that we've already talked to the listing agent, and the listing agent said, all that's fine, but my client can't move out until the house is built. So we can't move out until January 15th. We can go ahead and close. We like that, but we need a lease until January 15th. Then I would put, there's a form for that. And so then I would put according to a temporary residential lease, and that tells me I need to have that lease. Now, you guys, again, when you're thinking about how do I get paid, when you fill out your back agent portion, you got to include that lease. Anything on here has to go into back agent, okay? If it says it in here, it says it in back agent. So again, special provisions. If anyone has an example of where they would put special provisions in here, I have not done that in my business. I think there's just about a form for an amendment and an addendum for just about everything you would ask for. So I don't have an example of when you would do that. I will tell you, it has to be fact-based. It has to be task-oriented and have consideration to be part of a contract. Now let's think about settlement and other expenses. If you go down to B, you will see that says seller shall also pay an amount not to exceed blank to be applied to the following order: buyer's expenses, with which buyer is prohibited from paying by FHA, VA, Texas Veterans Land Board, or other government loan programs, and then to other buyer expenses as allowed by lender. What that means is you're asking the seller to contribute to the buyer's closing costs. And I have used this very successfully sometimes. You know, this is not an ask for the moon thing, but when I have a buyer client that has a cash flow issue, and I have a property that is well within the comps, okay? Well within the comps. Or let's say I have a property that maybe has been on, they like a house that's been on the market for, in this market, 60 days. 60 days would be a long time in this market. So then that's when I could negotiate with the seller. I could say, we're going to pay your asking price, but we're going to ask if your seller will contribute $2,000 to my buyer's closing costs. So see, that helps them with their cash, and it also keeps. I need to make sure I keep my house in appraisable range, is what I guess I'm trying to say. So you need to consider the whole offer. Put yourself in the seller's shoes. Is this a good offer to them? Does this look like something they would accept? And so, and of course, you're going to negotiate from here. But I have many times asked a seller to contribute to a buyer's closing costs very successfully, and it's very helpful with buyers that are, close on the cash. And by the way, you need to work very closely with your lender. There are many, many reasons to have lender partners. That's why we have Jackson Henry. That's why we have close relationships with our lenders. Because I many times when I'm talking to my lender will say, Cheryl, I don't see the cash. I haven't seen the cash. When you're doing a offer, see if you can get them. I think they need about $1,500. So see if you can negotiate that in your offers. So my lender will tell me, many times if I need to do that. And then the other way is you need to make sure that you're not asking for too much, because just because the seller agrees to pay $10,000 in closing costs, that doesn't mean the lender can allow it. So we need to be careful about how much we're offering a client or a buyer. Work with your lenders. So in this case, we're not asking for anything. We're going to leave that blank. I'm going to go down again. I'm going down. I make sure that my buyer, I've got my contact information in here, and I make sure that I have all the appropriate amendments. So I need a third-party addendum. I need an HOA. let me see what else we have. I don't need anything else. I don't need a temporary lease. I'm looking through here. It's not an old house. I don't need a lead-based paint. I think I'm good. I think I've got everything here. So now let's talk about option periods. So termination period. My favorite option period is 10 days. If I can get a listing agent and a seller to agree, my favorite option fee is $200, and my favorite option period is 10 days. So, and that's pretty much standard for me. And I tell you why. I think that if you think about getting, in my mind, I need to get an inspector out there in this market, and sometimes that takes me a couple of days. I need to get my inspection. Then I need to get the inspection report back from the inspector. That's a good another 24 hours. And then my poor buyer, who maybe has never seen one of these before, has to absorb this information. We have to review it. I need to write an amendment. I need to get it to my buyer, and then our negotiations start. So really, I think in most cases, I've eaten up 4 or 5 days in all that. So, especially if you have a good inspector that stays busy. So I shoot for $200 in 10 days. Every once in a while, a seller will push back and ask for more option fee, but for the most part, it's pretty much standard. This means that, just as a review, that your client can, for any reason or no reason, terminate the contract and get their earnest money back, not their option fee, okay? Not their option fee. I always explain that to my client. It's a fee, and that's the fee part. And the earnest money goes toward their purchase. The option fee will be credited. If you check, the option fee will be credited to the sale price at closing. We pre-check it for you. But it doesn't mean that if you bust out, if you don't buy, that they'll get their money back, because they won't. And we have a place to make absolutely sure. In my life, I always remember I'm the easy to work with agent, right? So in my life, I fill all this out on the listing broker firm side. I fill all that out for them. And let me show you how to find that. So I go back to the listing. See, I need this listing, so I have it right here. I go back to the listing just in case you guys haven't done this yet. Are y'all still alive on there? Is everyone okay online? Okay.
We are. Thank you, Cheryl.
You're welcome. Okay. So when I go down to my listing, it's really, really easy to do this. And it goes a long way. So I just click on Tracy's name right there. I click on Tracy's name and I have her license, I have her email address, I have her phone number, I have everything I need. And then I can also go back and click on her brokerage and have all of that information. So I complete all of this information for her and make sure that, you know, we've got everything in there. So really, when someone gets my package, they just have to sign. You know, just send it to your client, have them sign it. And all I want is your agreement. Don't forget, don't work for free. Please don't work for free. And I need to put my lowly 2% down there. There it is. So, so I need to fill that in. I see more times when people do not fill that in. It's kind of scary. And I'm finished with this, so I'm going to save it. Any questions about the 1 to 4? Because that's a lot. I don't want to share it yet. Now, I want to talk to you. Let's talk about what goes with the 1 to 4. Are we good online, you guys? Oh, we got some. Okay. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. All right, so we're going to go to the third party, and I want to talk to you about the third party addendum because I see this is boo-boo land. Let's talk about, this is back to protecting your client. So in this case, I'm going to pretend that my client has a conventional financing, and they're going to get a first mortgage loan in the principal amount of $270,000. And there it's due in full in 30 years. I just go through here and fill in the blanks. The interest rate is not to exceed, usually I bump up whatever their letter says. So if my client letter says 2.75, I'll say 3%, because you never know what happens. And I want this to be true and correct 30 days from now. And I tell them that, you know, they go, why are you telling them I'll pay 3%? I'm not. I'm saying that for contractual purposes, if you can get financed up to 3%, we're in. Okay, that's what that means. And so, because you don't know, I mean, the interest rate could go up. We don't know the future. And then, you know, it's going to be that way for 30 years. We don't have ARMs very often anymore. And then the loan estimate, the origination charges for the loan not to exceed 1% of the loan. Unless it's Guido, it should be, you know, right there within 1%. We don't see second mortgages very often anymore, but you know, if that were the case, you would complete that. If you got a VA loan, you go down here and complete that, or an FHA loan, you just choose which one you have and complete it. Your information is on that pre-approval letter that you need. Now, very important, down here in number 2, it says buyer approval. And it's pre-populated for 28 days. You're going to get some agents, especially agents that have been around a long time, to push back on that. We pre-populate that. We used to pre-populate 21 days. And if I had a VA loan or an FHA loan, I'd pre-populate for 25 days. But loans are taking longer. And agents think that if you do if you fill out the first part, that you are protecting the seller. You're saying, don't worry, we're going to get financing within 28 days. But that's not true. You're giving your buyer 28 days to get financed. And if for some reason their financing falls apart in day 25, their earnest money is protected. So that's why you want to pay attention to the state. And by the way, if 28 days passes and your lenders can't make it happen, you get an amendment to change that date. If you don't have an amendment to change that date and you still don't have appraisals and you still don't have everything the lender needs to get to underwriting, change the date. So, and then there's this, I had this happen to me. I was telling Doug about it the other day. I have a listing where the buyer's agent sent to me a, in her mind, the buyer has money, okay? And so in her mind, this contract is not subject to buyer obtaining buyer approval. She actually checked that. I cannot believe this person checked that, because basically what she's saying to me is if this falls apart, you get to keep the earnest money. That's really what's happened. So be very, I don't think I would ever, even if it was true, even if your client was sitting on a mountain of money, I can't see when I would check that. So, because what you're saying is my client can't get out of this if their financing falls apart. So really this is a check for you, and it's widely, I think it's widely ignored, because in our life, in our industry, we just put 21 and 25 days in there, and if everything went on fine, we just went on. I mean, you know, it was just too routine, but there's a lot of opportunity for you to protect your buyer right here in number 2. So, if you have an FHA loan, there is a provision in here that, and by the way, there's another, this is kind of redundant because there's another document you're most likely going to be able, the seller is most likely going to have to sign from FHA and VA that basically says our client gets out if their house doesn't appraise. And so you want to put whatever you're buying the house for. So if the house, so this is $300,000. If this was an FHA loan, I'd put $300,000. Okay, so I'm finished with that. I'm going to say questions about the third-party financing. Hey, no stump the chump. Okay. What did I say not say? All right. Now, in my life here, in our buyer's docs, there is an addendum for property subject to mandatory. That is really a seller's document. So remember yesterday we talked about there's 2 seller's documents. There's the HOA and there's the notice of a MUD district. I never fill out the notice of a MUD district for a seller, because that's a way I can get my buyer out of a contract. It's a no-no to deliver, to have a listing and not disclose that there's a water district. In the case of a HOA, if this seller has not been smart enough to put their HOA agreement together, I put it together for them. And here's what I do. So let's just pretend there's an HOA and they did not send me an HOA. So I'm going to put Bubba's HOA and whatever his number is. Number. Okay, and then I'm going to put down here, I'm going to say that within so many days after the effective date of the contract, the seller shall obtain, pay for, and deliver the subdivision information to the buyer. I'm going to say within 15 days. They were the ones that didn't write it up. Hey, I would like to help them. And then right here, I'm going to put that under C, except as provided by paragraphs A, D, and E, buyer shall pay any and all association fees and or other charges associated with the transfer of the property not to exceed, okay, I don't want to cause attention, so I'll put $200. That means I've got my client in for 200 bucks. And under E, where it says, and it's pre-populated for you, so that now I'm saying that the seller shall pay the title company costs for obtaining the information. So, and that could be a lot of money in some HOAs. So if that listing agent, my message to you, if you're the listing agent, do not let this happen. Do not let me come along with my buyer and you did not fill out the HOA and put it online. So always, always, always put it online. But if your buyer, you're representing a buyer and the listing agent has not done that, then you want to fill this out to your client's benefit. And you know, HOAs and third-party financing addendums, things like that, there are little pieces of money that can cost your client money. And when you're talking about a first-time buyer and a little couple that have saved a little bit of money to buy their first house, you know, you need to be careful about a little bit here and a little bit there. We get very used to those amounts and we don't pay attention to them. I don't like we should, but we really want to work on our client's behalf. Remember, that's our job. Here at Abbey, we need to complete. We do have, which I'm not familiar with because I just found out yesterday, so I'm going to be honest with you. We do have and this one's not fixed. Oh, there it is. Okay. We do have an agreement with American Home Shield that you can obtain additional funds by using American Home Shield. I do not know the particulars. I'm going to be really honest with you. I will find out and ask that we send out a notice. But now, because we have that agreement with American Home Shield, we have to disclose that we have it. Doesn't mean you have to use American Home Shield. And I, you know, make sure your client knows they have choice. They choose the home warranty group of their choice. But if they choose American Home Shield, they have to know we get money. And so you'll have to have them fill that out. Because remember, we said that they're going to choose, they're going to get a warranty. Seller, we hope the seller buys that. And we still need a TILA, we still need to furnish TILA recipe information, that we need to advise them that just by business, we're going to have information regarding this transaction in their financial, the price of the home and their lender information. So this is auto populated for them. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. Okay. Now, let me make sure I've got everything. Oh, and general information and notice to buyer, make sure you sign it. Made this mistake. Now, you know what? I used to say to my kids, learn from mistakes. They don't have to be your own. Well, in here, they can be Cheryl's past mistakes, and you can learn from them and not do them. So, and I had forgotten to do this because it's kind of, so going down here, I need to sign it before I send it to my client. Going, it tells us everything that bad could happen to them. And I'm going to sign it now because I'll forget. And here we are. Okay. All right. Now, before I remember from .loop class, we have things that we have signed, that we have to sign and send with this packet. So I want to make sure everyone's okay. Let me check again. Are we okay? Okay. All right. And remember, we have things we saved that we have to have our client sign. And I saved mine to a file, so I'm going to put them in here. Where did I put it? I think I put it under class. And here we go. And I saved them. And just as a review, your number one, your client needs to sign and submit everything that they have provided in requested signatures. Have your client look at, first of all, your client is signing that you provided these and that they understood them. They read them. That's what they're saying. So they're not agreeing to anything. They're just saying, yes, we provided and I read them. And except for the seller's exclusion list, they're agreeing that whatever's on this list will not be included. And by the way, this one's naked. We're going to sign it anyway, just for fun. Not just as a review. Our buyer, what we can do is we can, if we have a flat file that we added, that we can add a signature this way. There's a couple ways to do it. Oops. Oh, my mouse and I aren't getting along. Gee, I'm having fun. Okay, let me escape. There it is. Oh yeah, I got it. Okay. And then I'm going to assign, I added a signature. Now I'm going to assign the field. And I know Fred needs to sign it. So I've got Fred there. And then I'm going to save. That's one way I can do it. Another way, remember I made my templates with common signatures that I need. You want to share this? Common signatures that I need. So I can go to the seller's disclosure and I can, under more, why isn't this? Oh, I wonder, you know what? I know what it is. Nope, that's not what it is. Under more, not having fun. Oh, I lied. Under file, I always lose this. Under file, I can say apply template. And it'll ask me what template I want to. Remember, I made myself a template. And so there's two seller's disclosures. It's this one I want. The seller's disclosure. And then I can, so I added his signature and I can, it's right here, can be signed by Fred Flintstone. So he's all set to go. So he's assigned to Fred. Good. So I added my template that I made for myself so that I wouldn't have to go through and copy and paste and copy and paste and copy and paste all those signatures. So I save all that. Now, so I've talked to my client along the way. I want to stop here because I want to talk about, I've talked to my client along the way. And as I talk to my client, I noticed that, I want to make sure that it was up here. I've told my client, okay, I'm going to send you the documents to sign. So we've been talking, he's talked about, you know, the offer that we're submitting, you know, what he wanted, blah, 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 blah. Time frame, all this stuff. Now, another thing we didn't discuss, and it's not one of our pre-completed forms, but I want to stop. I'm going to do a commercial break. I had one thought. Now I want to stop and make sure I cover this. One of the documents that's not included here, but you need to pay attention to, if there are non-realty items would be the refrigerator, common non-realty item. My client walks through, I had one client that, gosh, he just wanted these poor people to leave with their toothbrush and never come back. So whatever, you know, your client wants to include that is really not part of the real estate. So that would be a washer and dryer, a refrigerator, all those things. What you need to do is you add a non-realty addendum. So let's go back. We're getting a lot of fun experience finding addendums. Let's see, where is that thing? Let's try non-realty. Yep, non-realty items. Remember when I don't know where the form is, I can just kind of go hunt on my Easter egg hunt. I can go to Trek Interactive Forms and start typing and it'll come up. If not, I'll go to TAR and look in there. So, okay. Non-realty items, there you go. And when I fill this out, and I want it to be included, I'm going to put nothing here, nothing in there. And then I'm going to specifically list, like if it's a refrigerator, I'm going to say refrigerator and kitchen. If it's the refrigerator in the garage, I'll put the refrigerator in the garage. If it's a couch, I'll put the couch in the upstairs game room. I'm very specific about what those non-realty items are. And then I just list them out here, okay? So I'll just put, I wouldn't say fridge, you know what, we're in a hurry. Fridge and kitchen. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure you go over that. Make sure to remember, is there anything non-realty that my client wants to include? I don't think, I've never gone that far. I just put where it's located in the house, you know? And so now I'm ready to send this to my client to have them sign. I do this in two ways, two emails. I put all the forms that and the amendments, well not amendments, but addendum that only I need for Abbey Realty. So I need the tiller for Abbey Realty, okay? I need the general information for buyer for Abbey. I need the IABS and the residential buyer tenant representative agreement. That's internal to Abbey. I need those things. And then I need, so those are the disclosures I need to share with my client. And then in a separate document, I send all the contract related things. And the reason I do this is because one of my favorite things about Dotloop that makes a really nice package is once my client signs, I can take all of those documents and I can download them in easily one document, offer package, here you go, okay? And I can share with the other agent. So I can just share those things with the other agent through Dotloop. So I have some flexibility, and plus it kind of keeps things straight between the client and I about what they're signing, because I send them a little email that explains these are the disclosures. I've done some template emails so that I make sure that I explain things to my clients, because I can go in and quickly change my templates, but I have an email that I send them that tells them I just forwarded you 2 emails via Doc. The first one contains these disclosures I'm required by Abbey Realty and the state of Texas to share with you, and I list them out. So, you know, IBS, general information, all that, I list them out. And then the second email I sent you is our offer package, and it includes the following. And I tell them a offer of $300,000 with a loan of $270,000 and a closing date of the state and a request for a home service agreement. So I line it all out so they can not only go through it, but they can look at it. Okay. I always want, it's very important to me that my client feels informed. And I get a lot of feedback about that, by the way, a lot of positive feedback about how I inform my clients. So I just find it helpful. And I find it helpful to me to keep that segregated and make sure I have it all. The other thing, it helps me my template, because I have my little template, to kind of give me a double check that I give them everything, okay? So those are the other 2 things. Once my client signs this, I remember I want the other agent to like me. So I send an email and it says, um, on behalf of my clients, we are respectfully submitting the attached offer. Our offer includes, and I list the summary of what we're asking for. So that agent, they just have to look at it, and then they can go look at my offer. And so, and I feed them everything they gave me, I give back to them. So if they gave me SDs, they get SDs back signed with the contract, all one package. So that's kind of, that's really how this goes down. And I'm looking to make sure I didn't leave out any forms that you need to. I think we're good. Don't forget your buyer's checklist, transaction checklist. And also, you know, your buyer's walkthrough and acceptance is going to be taken care of way down the road. So you're going to have other forms that are included and you don't need them now. But I think that's all I had to tell you about how to submit a buyer's rep package. What questions do you have, or what did I leave out that you wanted me to talk about?
Cheryl, this is Chris. I have a question.
Yes.
So whenever you're having to kind of go back and forth during negotiations and then forms need to be reinitialed and re-signed, what do you ultimately have to keep in dot loop? And sorry, that's my Shih Tzu in the background snoring. But where do you do all that? Like, where do you make
How
changes to the initialing and all that in dot loop?
going back and forth. How I take care of that is I save a copy of the initial offer. Well, it depends on, so my client signed it, right? So I have to save it because they signed it. So I save that in a file, and then I continue to manipulate, go back and change what I need to change on the 1 to 4. And when I change that, I'll get a notice that says any changes will delete the signature, but I just go back and make the change here on the 1 to 4. Let's say we came back and they said, no, we want our full price and you need to add back in the 2,000. Then I would add that back into the price, fix the price, and resend it to my client to sign. Is what I would only resend them what I need them to. I don't send them the whole package again. I just send them back what I need them to sign again. So that's how I save a copy of what they signed on my file, and then in dot loop, I change this and keep signing. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Huh?
And is there anything that needs to be submitted in dot loop, or does one of the admins review all the documentation in here, or is it just back agent?
They review in back agent. I mean, they can go to your dot loop, and I'm thinking that, you know, if I was your coach and if I was like trying to help you, I might go, I mean, your coach has access to this, but they're really from a I guess compliance perspective. I don't like that word, but quality assurance perspective, they are looking at your work in back agent. What you submit to them in back agent.
Got it, thank you.
Anyone else? Anything that we didn't talk about we want to talk about? Okay, I'm passing out the test. All right, you guys. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. And I guess we'll see you second week. Well, no, if you have gone to you graduated today from my classes if you've gone to last week. And for anyone that sat through this and did not go to Fast Start 2 and 3, that's the second week of December. So, and we'll be doing that. Okay, guys, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye. You guys have a good day. Well, Well, okay, Doug, you didn't fall asleep. I thought that was really nice of you.